Hello and welcome to another edition of Southeast Ohio Sports Talk. I'm Ben Spicer along with Portsmouth Times sports editor Kevin Colley. And Kevin, we finally got some high school football to preview and predict. The season is finally here.
Yes, I'm so excited. We're also excited to tell you that the high school football preview that the Daily Times puts out is out today. You can get it here at the Daily Times. It also comes with the subscription if you have one with the paper. It's free with that. So looking forward to a lot of effort went into the preview. We're so excited to each have been covering the 7 schools that we covered, and we had some help with Jim Walker at the Iron Tribune, Tracy Comer, Hope Comer, all helped tremendously in putting such a massive project together, and we can't thank them enough for their work and due diligence in helping us produce this product.
I got a sneak peek of it, and I must say it looks very good, so make sure you check it out. We put a lot of work into it. But now we are going to preview and pick who we think will win some of the games in the area this week. Actually, all the games from the Scioto County teams and several other teams as well. But we're going to start with the game that sets things off later on tonight, Portsmouth and Valley.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a great game. I think that Portsmouth has the advantage here. They won last year's matchup. Taylor Parker almost had 200 rushing yards, so they're ready to have another big day on the ground, I think. And I think Isaac Kelly is going to be an X factor. So I've got Portsmouth winning this game. I don't know about you, Kevin. What do you think about this game?
Much the same, Ben. I agree. Portsmouth, I have them tabbed to win this game as well. I think the offensive line play in the trenches and their play on the defensive line with having Bain and Gamble up there, and the physicality that they bring to the table. And when you add Isaac Kelly in there, obviously we know what Talon Parker can do from the running back position, but having Isaac Kelly in that line there is massive. I think Portsmouth comes out and wins.
Should be a great game. I'm looking forward to that one. Next up on Friday, we have Minford taking on the OVC's Rock Hill. And that one's an interesting game. I've actually got Rock Hill taking this one because Minford still has some uncertainty at the quarterback position. They don't really know who's going to start. There's 3 different guys that could play. So I think that's enough to set them back against Rock Hill, even though they did lose a couple guys, Rock Hill. What do you think about that game?
Having a Lutz on the staff tells you all you need to know. Mark Lutz knows his stuff. I mean, he's not Bob Lutz. He's Mark Lutz. He's going to do things his way. And it's just going to be a tough game for Minford going on to Rock Hill, which is a pretty decently long road trip, and then having some inexperience there at the quarterback position like you touched on, which is a very good point. I think Rock Hill comes out with the win. Now
let's take things over to the west side. Portsmouth West, the Senators taking on the Fairland Dragons. And last year, West Portsmouth, they had some quarterback issues, played 4 different guys at quarterback. Dylan Bradford's back from injury this year. I expect him to be a difference maker, although the Senators did struggle on the ground, so that could be a factor in this game as well. Do you think Fairland could have a chance in this one?
Yes, they should. They could, and they will. They in the past 2 or 3 years, they've battled within 2-3 scores. I think West will avenge its fate and get a win in the season opener. However, with Bradford back and healthy, with a more experienced unit and a pretty physical and big line, they have to improve some tackling issues. But Ben Johnson's as good with the X's and O's as anybody, so I pick West.
Kevin's got the Senators in that one. So let's head out to Sciotaville now, where East is actually going to take a road trip to South Gallia, and the Tartans, I think, even though they lost to Kia Brown and they're going through some changes at quarterback and all that, I still think the Tartans are going to be too powerful. They had 12 sacks last year against South Gallia. That's incredible to me, those statistics that the Tartans put up. Yes. Do you think South Gallia has a chance, though, in this one?
No, I really think East. It's going to be East all the way in this one. Personally, I think they're well on their way to another 9 or 10 win season. Their line is just so physical up front. They played Meigs and Eastern Meigs in a scrimmage, and the reports were stellar from what I've heard. Both teams, East fared very well against, even dominated at times. I look for East to roll pretty big in this one. Mike Smith's a great coach at South Gallia, and I respect what he's done. I respect their offensive line, but I have East.
Anytime you've got a guy like Blaine Scott on that line anchoring things down, you're in good hands. Let's move on to Green now out at Franklin Furnace, and they've got a pretty good offensive line this season. They're going to take on West Union on the road in their first matchup, and I think Green's going to take this one. They lost to West Union last year, but I think they're out for redemption in this one. I've got the Bobcats.
I do too. I agree with you, Ben. Their line is much improved, much more physical. They only have 1 senior on the roster, but a lot of juniors and sophomores behind that with a lot of playing experience. You've got a big-time backfield, and Coach Newsom can actually run, like he said in the preseason, in the preview that you'll read today, that he can actually run what he wants out of the bone, in the T, some in the wishbone. I look for Green to avenge its loss as well.
Gotta love a team that runs that old wishbone offense.
Yeah.
So moving on to Sims Valley and their coach Rusty Webb, they're going to take on Payton City out of West Virginia. And last year the Vikings shut out Payton City 32-0. Even though Sims Valley is going through some changes with their quarterback and some question marks still, I've got the Vikings in this one.
I do too. Don't know a whole lot about Payton City, but they really struggled last year. And Rusty Webb's just a fine coach in general. He'll have the Vikings ready for week 1, and I say they'll come out with the victory.
So now moving forward to Piketon and Waverly, I think this is going to be one of the best matchups of the weekend. And I talked with Piketon head coach Tyler Goyen in Media Day about this game, and let's hear what he has to say.
It's a big game. They're going to be good again. Clayton Howell's back, quarterback, and they got most of their offensive line, defensive line back. So it'll be one of our tougher games of the season and big rivalry game going up there. So it'll be baptism by fire, I guess, for a new quarterback, whoever that might be. But it's always a fun game as well to get to gauge where we're at.
Pretty interesting stuff there from Coach Goyen. Although, despite the changes that they're going through, they still have some offensive weapons there at Piketon, but I just don't see it being enough. Clayton Howell is spectacular at quarterback for Waverly, so I've got the Tigers in that one. In a close game.
Yeah, I think it will be closer than last year too, but I agree with you, Ben. I think Waverly comes out on top. Howell and Chris Weiser are a great 1-2 punch back there offensively, and Chris Crabtree's really got that program rolling. It's improved every season he's been there, and I look for much of the same. I think Goyen's Piketon squad is going to be much improved this year, and that's why the score will be closer. But Waverly's continuing to make strides. I don't see them being touched, but Waverly being touched in this one.
And then another game that wasn't really close last year was Millersport and Eastern. You know, Eastern looked really good in that game, and I just don't think Millersport has enough to knock them off in this one. Eastern is one of those teams that we've had that's maybe a surprise this year. So do you think they'll have a setback in week 1, or they'll roll?
No, they'll roll. Explosive line, explosive playmakers, coach with a lot of charisma. You add all those up together, it equals a W in week 1.
And I know what you guys are saying. We've agreed on everything so far. So here's a toss-up game that Kevin is decided with me on. Southeastern and Northwest, the Mohawks are going to travel up to Southeastern. And Kevin says that Southeastern's going to win, but I've got the Mohawks.
I think it's going to be Southeastern simply because they went 6-4 last year in the SBC, where they're Division 6 playing against Division 4 Scioto, and then a bunch of D5s in there. They just, to me, when you're going 6-4 and you only lose 3 offensive linemen, when you go about 15 to 16 offensive linemen on your roster, and you only lose 2 or 3 skill position players, I have to go with Chillicothe Southeastern. I think Northwest has made strides, and I think Coach Marvin has done a great job with the program. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think they made enough strides to be where Southeastern is at this point in time.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough test in week 1 for the Mohawks. So last but not least, on our Friday slate of games, we have Oak Hill and Chesapeake. And this is an interesting game for me because I have Chesapeake doing very, very well in the OVC this season. I actually predicted them to be in the top 3 of that conference. So I think Oak Hill, Caleb Johnson's coming back from that injury. I don't know if they're going to be ready in week 1 for a team like Chesapeake. What do you think?
I agree, Ben. It's a tough playing against Chesapeake program that is so fast as the Panthers are. I agree. I also had Chesapeake in the top 3 in the OVC because of their speed, and it's just something I would have to see Oak Hill do it to believe it, because the last 2 years they've really struggled against the Panthers, and have had a difficult time overcoming the hurdle that and the challenges that they present from a matchup standpoint.
And now we move on to the games on Saturday at Spartan Stadium, a tradition for Notre Dame. They're going to take on Southern in this game, and Southern's a team that beat Notre Dame last year when they had all those weapons. So it's a tough game for the Titans. I think I'm going to pick Southern in this one, but I think Notre Dame will put up a good fight in their first game.
Yeah, I agree, Ben. I also pick Southern. Notre Dame will fight though to the very end, and that's something Bob Ashley is going to have to continue to emphasize to his team, because with only 14 healthy players right now, as we last have heard, it can be a game that you can get very down easily And it could be one, that may not present the best scenarios, but that's part of the growing experience. You're going to have to take those and learn from them and grow from those, and that will create the winning situations later on, hopefully, if they keep that freshman class together.
And now the game of the week, the game that everyone has been waiting for all offseason, Wheelersburg and Ironton.
Right.
Always a big rivalry matchup. And this one, I think Wheelersburg is going to take it, but the quarterback battle, we're hearing that maybe a new face could be starting at quarterback for the Pirates. It looks like that they're going to go with Trent Salyers in this one, so it's going to be the battle of the Salyers between Ironton and Wheelersburg, potentially. We're not for sure yet, but we're hearing rumors about that. Yeah. Do you think maybe with the change at quarterback that it's going to put Wheelersburg in that position to lose, or?
No, not a bit. McDyer is a vertical threat wide receiver, so he's an athlete. You could put him at the quarterback position or the wide out spot, and he'll do work, anywhere he's at on the field. And then when you add him up in the trenches, I've heard things that indicate that Ironton, it might be a little bit out of shape and in the trenches, whereas Wheelersburg, they've got 10 guys who can rotate back and forth. That can really wear on you, and they really won't need to do a whole lot of passing if they can continue to run the ball down Ironton's throat. You're talking about 10 linemen, 7 seniors, of that 10 in the 2 deep, and you've got possibly rotating all those backs back there, and possibly having 6'2", 220 pounds Xander Carmichael running through there, and all those vertical threats. I just don't see any way Wheelersburg's going to lose this game. I could be way off base here, but they've rolled the past 3-4 years, and I just don't see it changing this year.
You never really know in those rivalry games, but it'll definitely be a great game to watch. I know a lot of people will be in Ironton for that one. In case you're not going out to Ironton, though, the West Portsmouth Tanks will be playing in their playoff game in the Blue Collar Football League on Saturday, and a special guest joined our program today. Let's check that out. We've got a special guest joining us on the program this week, defensive coordinator Brian Wroten from the West Portsmouth Tanks. And before we talk about the Tanks playoff game, I just wanted to talk about the Tanks' efforts within the community. I know they've had a canned food drive as well as a clothing drive so far this season. So what does that mean to you all to give back to the community with the Tanks?
Well, a lot of what we do is based to the community as it is, because we work with the youth complex where we play our football games. We've done a lot of renovation there. So it makes sense for us to try to do some other things to give back to the community. So we were fortunate enough, we had some inflatables that get donated to us, so we utilize those to be able to get kids to donate cans of food so that they can jump for free, and then we turn those over, and we did the same thing with the clothes drive a couple weeks ago. So
yeah, I went out to the clothes drive, the season finale for you guys against Butler County, a great game, great atmosphere as well. So I expect the playoff game this weekend to be much of the same. You guys play Saturday at 7 p.m. at the complex?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Yeah. 6 o'clock at the complex, and you'll be taking on a familiar foe, West Virginia Lightning. You've played them twice this year. The second game of the season, they got the best of you guys. Your only loss of the season.
Right.
So how have you guys prepared leading up to that game?
A lot of different things that they were able to do to us in the second game they didn't do the first game. So the game plan for us is going to be obviously try to stop the run from my perspective, just because their offensive line's probably 6'5", 325 pounds, are huge. 2 or 3 of them, I think, played for University of Marshall not too long ago. So it's not your typical offensive line. So they're going to try to run the football against us, try to patch and pass off of it. So I think it'll come down to, if we can stop the run, I think we'll win the football game.
Now, for those who may not be familiar with the Tanks, who are some defensive players that we can watch out for in that game?
Last year's Defensive Player of the Year, Chris Hill, played strong safety for us. Chris is a phenomenal football player. We utilize him in a lot of different ways. He plays kind of a monster position for us. We blitz him a lot. We expect him to play a lot of man coverage. Another football player that's going to be big for us, that's been big for us all year long, is Richard Ellery. Richard plays free safety for us. I believe he's got 7 interceptions this year, and 5 of them he's taken back to the house for touchdowns, along with 2 or 3 punt returns for touchdowns. Defensively, a guy's played with me for 5 years now, Steve Lee. He's from Ashland, Kentucky. Steve played a little bit of Morehead State. Steve is a consummate leader. He's one of those guys that you don't really have to ask. You know, he just leads. And Deion McKinley from Portsmouth, 6'5", 235-pound defensive end. It's the kind of defensive end we like to play with. We like them long. Deion presents a problem if he can't get to the quarterback, gets his hands up. We knocked a lot of balls down that way. We've got some deflected interceptions. So, a few of the guys that I think will play big. Luke Brown from Otway. Luke actually converted from offense last year. Luke played, we call it B-back, more of a hybrid fullback over to defensive end this year because we decided to change our offensive scheme. Luke is as good against the run as against. I think he's got 6 or 7 sacks this year. So pretty much everyone we have played very, very well on defense. We've got 2 or 3 semi-pro All-Americans on the defensive side of the ball, and probably 5 additional All-Stars in the BCFL. So we've been very fortunate this year as far as having good defensive players.
The defense definitely kept you guys in the last game against Butler County. So just moving ahead to the playoff game, what are your expectations for the defense against West Virginia in the playoff game?
What we have to do is we have to do a better job of getting some penetration. Semi-pros, unlike a lot of other football, whereas you've got a lot of other factors you have to consider. It's summertime. A lot of these people have families, which means weddings, which means pregnancies, which means shift changes in jobs. So sometimes, a 2.5-hour trip is very hard logistically to be able to get it together. So we traveled up there, not really having as many of the guys as we'd like to have. We probably had 26 of, a 35, 36-man roster. So as long as everyone shows up that we need to be there, it gives us the quality depth that we need. Because against big, mountainous offensive linemen like they have, you have to be able to rotate your guys in. Typically, ideally, what I like to do is I like to be 6 deep in pairs at defensive end, and also 6 deep when it comes to defensive tackle. But, if they can't play, they can't play. They have to be good enough to play. What we always tell people, the best players start, good players play. And we just rotate. We like to rotate in thirds. So if we can get our rotation going against those big mammoth offensive linemen, hopefully they'll wear it in before we will. And we'll do a good job of stopping the run. And that's the biggest part of it. If we can stop the run, force them to pass, I like our chances.
It should be a great game. It's definitely been a great season thus far for the Tanks. Coach, thank you so much for joining the program, and best of luck this game against West Virginia.
Well, we appreciate you. Thanks, man.
Thank you. All right, and we wanted to introduce another new segment to the show. We've got top performers of the week, and Kevin, I'll let you go ahead with yours.
Yes, my first of the 2 that I have, got to give a shout out here to Northwest Evan Throckmorton. Evan, 6 goals, all unassisted, tying the school record set by your coach, Josh Keeney. Awesome job, young man. You seem like a fine young man in that top 20 club academically at Northwest. So shout out, keep doing what you're doing as a student athlete. You deserve it. That's awesome against any opponent, scoring 6 unassisted goals and really rallying Northwest to the victory against a tough Clay squad that put up quite a bit of a fight with half of its starting lineup out due to injuries and ineligibility. Then we talk about Wheelersburg girls soccer coming off of a district championship in only its 3rd year of existence. 4 seasons certainly started out really good for them, beating Chesapeake 8-0 in 40 minutes in a game that was called due to inclement weather early. Both coaches agreed to play it at 40 minutes and call it official from there. Some players that you look at there, Winley Willis and Libby Miller. Madison Humble was one of the fastest players I've ever seen with her feet as a girls soccer player. She's going to get a lot of players in the SOC, the Southeast District, and I think they're definitely a regional contender, possibly a state Final Four contender. They'll give them problems there. Just one of the best girls soccer teams I've seen in quite a while, in my personal opinion. They're going to make a lot of noise. So shout out to Todd Jarvis, Kevin Powell, and the Wheelersburg girls soccer program. They're definitely doing some things right there because 14 seniors, and they can all play, and they're all really good.
Kevin, I played soccer. My career was pretty short-lived. I didn't even score 6 goals in my entire career. So huge shout-out to the kid from Northwest, Evan Throckmorton. That's a great performance. And for my performer of the week, I've got Kaylee McGinnis, girls tennis player from Minford. I only covered 2 of their matches, but she pretty decisively won both of her singles matches as the number 1 for the Falcons. So huge shout-out to her. Keep doing what you do, Kaylee. You've had a great season so far, and keep it up. And thank you guys so much again for checking out Southeast Ohio Sports Talk. We hope you enjoyed our preview. If you have anything to disagree, or if you want to yell at Kevin for not picking Northwest, feel free. But thank you guys so much for checking it out. We appreciate it as always. For Kevin Colley, I'm Ben Spicer.